Welcome to this next edition of Smart Levers, and today we are talking about another model here. What is the PERMA model that we are talking about, Ramanan, today?
So, Harish, in our previous episodes, you've spoken a lot about corporate sort of environments, right, where people are trying to make change happen or innovation happen. This one is a little more personal, I would say. So, the PERMA model is comes from the world of positive psychology. That's an area that was grown in prominence thanks to the efforts of researchers like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, famous for the concept of flow, and Martin Seligman, who came up with the PERMA model. And so the idea behind positive psychology is that why should we only study people who have had challenges with mental health or with thinking about themselves and so on? Why not even study people who are leading happy, contented lives, or even lives where they may be struggling and striving, but they report a great sense of satisfaction with their life? And there have been decades of research into it. And Martin Seligman came up with this idea of PERMA. Let me quickly expand the acronym. P stands for positive emotions. This is what most people think when you ask them about happiness. This is, am I feeling good right now? But we also have situations where you may struggle. Think of someone, a cricketer playing in a test match who has had 4 difficult days, but on the fifth day comes out on top. They will probably look back and say, each day on its own was very negative, but the end result was very happy and satisfying. I think satisfying is a word they may use. So clearly there is more to being or feeling satisfied than just the emotion of happiness. So we go beyond the P for positive emotions. There is something called as engagement, which is where things like flow come in. When you're doing something, you feel really engaged in that whole process. You feel excited, eager to do things. Then there are positive relationships. That's the R in PERMA. So a lot of our well-being comes from social contact, and people have increasingly realized this over a period of time. Then there is higher order things like meaning, and finally accomplishment. So you will see a lot of overlap with concepts like Maslow's hierarchy. You will also see that this is a more well-rounded or more comprehensive sort of approach to be. And so this brings us to how this is how someone can use this in their lives. So the PERMA model essentially can be used as a way of designing your life as for a lifetime of satisfaction and not just for being happy today, which is you can achieve through a lot of short-term measures.
Yeah. Any concrete examples that you have thought of in how this can be applied to one's life just to make this more tangible and concrete for people?
If you take anyone who reports that the job is not very satisfying, and we have these kinds of conversations with people, they may have different stages of crisis, right? People will report that I'm not very satisfied. I have a good job, or I have things like that. And a lot of companies are now facing these issues wherein people say that I'm looking for something more. And I'll take my own example. This happened to me a decade ago. And so if you use the PERMA model, you can say that you can start listing down things and say that I'm happy whenever I do quizzing. I'm very happy when I'm writing, when I'm very happy when I solve problems for others. So that is like the positive emotion that you want to identify. Something like engagement could say that I'm in flow when I am teaching someone a new concept, and that gives me a great deal of engagement. At the end of it, I may feel exhausted, but I feel very satisfied. So that's an example of engagement. When it comes to positive relationship, you might say that I like collaborating with these groups of people, or I like spending time with certain members of my family. And I would keep liking to do that for the rest of a really long time. So that's the positive relationships part. Meaning is higher order purpose. So you say that when I teach someone or I help someone innovate, I'm creating something which is larger than myself. And this is where you can see purpose as an element. We've spoken about this in motivation in one of our previous episodes. So this is the same as purpose, where you say that I have helped society grow, I have helped these specific individuals get better. So mentoring is an example where you can have a great sense of purpose within an organization. You may not personally benefit from that relationship, but still it gives a great source of meaning. And finally, accomplishment. People are also very happy with titles and money in their bank account. We should not discount that. We shouldn't make this all about some grand utopian way of acquiring happiness. There is a place for winning that Nobel Prize or being recognized on a stage, getting a trophy in your hand. So this is accomplishment. This is some people will optimize for accomplishment. And so the what the PERMA model essentially says is that don't look at just positive emotions as a way of being happy or satisfied, and don't only look at the type which will come again after 20 years of struggle. There are so many other facets to feeling happy. And so we should also talk about the context in which Seligman and others came up with these ideas. They actually studied both people who are doing well and very satisfied in their lives, but they also looked at people who were going through stages like depression in their lives. And they came up with concepts like the gratitude journal practice, which some of our listeners will be familiar with. And what they essentially have assembled is that a bunch of interventions in these different areas that if you're in something where you are not feeling completely satisfied, you can actually use this to change that by saying, I can add more social relationships in my life because that is a missing gap in my PERMA landscape.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's like the message that you get when you board the airplane, right? First, put on your own oxygen mask and then help your co-passenger. If you are happy yourself and you figure out how to live a content and fulfilling life, that's when you can actually start helping others in your team. But I think we should add the one word of caution, like with any frameworks and models around psychology. In the specific example of Seligman's PERMA model, also, I think the US Army tried to adopt it to help US Army veterans who were suffering from PTSD. And they, after some time, the evidence proved that didn't really help. Not that it was harmful, but didn't really help to the extent that they had expected. I think that's the word of caution that we should think of in while applying all these models, that yes, there is merit of this model in a particular context, but don't just apply it blindly. It may
Yeah,
not be a quick fix.
yeah, all models are imperfect, and that is something that you need to be, cautious about. So do your own research, do your own reading, and figure out. So you can apply the PERMA model to PERMA model. You can say, does it make you happy, satisfied? If you're very excited about such models, then maybe you need to watch carefully about it. And use your network to talk about and discuss. Find someone who's very cynical about these things, and so eventually you may get a lot of meaning from this exercise. Find your own version of PERMA.
Yeah, your mileage may vary is the caveat that we should add. On that note, I hope our listeners check this out for themselves and apply different parts of it, or come back and tell us what is it that did not work in this model as well. Thanks a lot, Raman.
Thank you.